Have you ever wondered if there's a hidden logic to achieving your goals? You know, like a kind of source code that runs underneath every big breakthrough, whether it's in sports or building a business. Well, today we're going to explore a really fascinating idea. What if the very rules that we use to build sentences are the exact same rules that can help us build our own success? Let's dive in and start decoding. This quote, it just gets right to the heart of it all, doesn't it? We are not talking about wishful thinking or some vague fantasy. We are talking about architecture, a real blueprint for becoming the person you want to be. So we're going to unpack what that blueprint looks like and how you can learn to read it, and maybe even start writing it for yourself. All right, so let's start with the central theory, this idea that there's a kind of universal grammar, not for language, but for complex achievement itself, a set of deep, structural rules that seem to govern how we get things done. And this is the question at the very core of our explainer today. Just think about it for a second. Language takes just a handful of simple rules and uses them to generate an infinite number of meaningful sentences. So, what if we could apply a similar system to generate the outcomes we want in our own lives? Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. The source material calls this the Great Convergence. It's suggesting that linguistics and this system of conceptual algebra are basically two sides of the very same coin. Think of it like this. Both of these systems use a set of universal rules, or operators, things like addition or division, and they apply these universal rules to specific parts, whether those are words in a sentence, or for our purposes, the goals and resources in our lives, to create a structured, predictable outcome. So, to really get a handle on this new language, we've got to start with its most important word, the one that represents the single most powerful element in any equation you'll ever write for yourself, and that is, of course, the self. This is so important to get. In this system, the number one isn't a quantity, it's what's called the unity operator. It's the symbol for you, the conscious agent right at the center of your life. It's the interface that makes everything else actually work. Every single goal, every variable, every concept, it all has to pass through one to become real. And where you place this one completely flips the script on the power dynamic. If you write x divided by 1, it means I use x. You're in control. You are the shaping force, and you're using x as your tool. But if you flip it, if you write 1 divided by x, the meaning totally changes to x shapes me. Now you're yielding to x, allowing it to be the principle that guides and shapes you. And this rule right here just makes it so simple and clear. The denominator, the bottom part of the fraction, is always the one in charge. So when 1 is on the bottom, you have the executive authority. But when x is on the bottom, it has authority over you. It's such a simple but really powerful rule for figuring out who has agency in any situation. This really brings it all back home, doesn't it? You have to ask yourself, are you operating in that x over 1 mode, where you're actively shaping your world? Or are you more often in the 1 over x mode, letting your circumstances shape you? And look, there's a time and a place for both, for sure. The real key is to consciously know which mode you're in and why. Okay, so we've got our main building block, the self. Now let's get into that first really cool parallel with linguistics. This idea of building complex things from simple parts just by using a clear set of rules. Okay, this is just fantastic. Look at the left side. That's a basic rule from linguistics. It basically says a noun phrase, like the big dog, is made of a core noun, dog, plus some optional parts, like the or big. Now look at the right. The exact same structure applies to building a concept. An effective workout has a core element, the exercise, with optional but helpful parts like a warm-up or a cool-down. The deep structure, it's identical. And once you see this generative pattern, you start seeing it everywhere, right? Building a project phase, building trust in a relationship, learning a new skill, they all follow the same kind of additive modular structure. You have a core element, and you add these optional but really powerful modifiers that make the whole concept stronger and more complete. So building concepts is one thing, but what about when things need to change? This brings us to the second major parallel, and it's all about how context can trigger a total transformation. Really, it all comes down to one word, context. In linguistics, a sound can change completely based on the sounds around it. The rule on the left shows that A becomes B, but only when it's in a specific environment. Now look at the right. It's the same exact logic. A state, let's say individual-focused, transforms into a new state, teen focus, but only when it's triggered by the right context, like being put into a collaborative environment. The change isn't random. It's triggered by the situation. And this model of transformation is incredibly practical. A fixed mindset doesn't just magically become a growth mindset. No, it transforms when it's put in a very specific context, a real challenge combined with a solid support system. The same thing applies to shifting team dynamics or evolving a business strategy. You don't just force the state to change, you engineer the context that makes that change almost inevitable. Let's walk through how this all comes together with a real-world example. The goal is simple: to enjoy walking home from work. Okay, first attempt. Walking over 1. You're in control. What happens? It's easy to talk yourself out of it when you're tired or it's raining. So, second attempt, 1 over walking. Now the habit is the boss. It's more consistent, sure, but it feels like a joyless chore. But then, the magic happens when you start adding layers. You introduce a filter, divided by weather. Boom, now it's adaptive. Then you enrich the whole experience. You multiply it by listening to a podcast. You subtract the guilt of skipping the gym, and you add a focus on presence. See what happened? You haven't just created a habit. You've coded a rich, resilient, and actually enjoyable daily ritual. So when you put it all together, you realize this entire system isn't just some abstract theory, is it? It's a practical toolkit. It's basically a way to write the operating instructions for your own life, for pretty much any goal you want to achieve. So let's just quickly recap the code. First, remember, you are the central operator, the one in every single equation. Your position, x over 1 versus 1 over x, determines your agency. Are you the driver or are you the passenger? We've seen how you can build concepts just like you build sentences, using those generative rules. And you can transform states not by force, but by engineering the right context. And maybe most importantly, all of this means you can actively design, debug, and upgrade the code that runs your life. And that leaves us with one final thought. Thinking about a goal you have right now, a change you really want to make, or a habit you're trying to build, what's the first line of code? What's the first equation you're going to write for yourself?